Welcome to SCDM's AI and eSource podcast series. My name is Linda King, and I'm the SCDM facilitator for the eSource Implementation Consortium. The consortium's mission is to advance the adoption of eSource in clinical research. The use of artificial intelligence in its many forms, whether generative AI, agentic AI, machine learning, natural language processing, large language models, or GPT, has the potential to increase eSource adoption through the most effective implementation processes, documentation, training, validation, etc. This podcast series will talk with folks using AI and eSource from multiple clinical research perspectives, sites, sponsors, and technology vendors. Our guest today is Jonathan Andrus. Jonathan is representing a technology vendor perspective. With nearly 30 years of experience, Jonathan specializes in developing eClinical services that integrate data and technology to optimize study execution. At CRIO, he oversees customer success, sales, marketing, finance, compliance, and people programs. An active thought leader, Jonathan has chaired the Society for Clinical Data Management, or SCDM, twice, and currently serves as its treasurer. He holds BA and MS degrees from Temple University and is a certified quality auditor, CQA, a certified clinical data manager, CCDM, and a U.S. Army Military Intelligence Corps veteran. Welcome, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you, Linda. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. A quick SCDM disclaimer before we get started. This podcast is provided by the Society for Clinical Data Management eSource Implementation Consortium. It is intended for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, regulatory, or professional advice. It is not an endorsement by SCDM of the technology vendor or their services. SCDM and the speakers are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information provided. Users are advised to consult with appropriate professionals for specific advice tailored to their individual circumstances. The opinions expressed are attributed to the speakers only and not their respective employers. Let's get started. Jonathan, before we dive into AI, could you start by sharing what area of eSource you focus on the most? For example, ECOA, AHR to EDC integration, digital health technology, digital protocol, monitoring, end-to-end data flow, eSource training, analysis, or others?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really important question to start with because I think oftentimes when people hear the word eSource, they have all sorts of different ideas in their head as to what that actually means. But from a CRIO perspective and the perspective that I bring, at least to kind of our conversation here today, is that, CRIO operates really from a full eSource stack at the site level. Our core products are really eSource CTMS or Site CTMS, eReg, and eConsent, and they're really designed to give research sites a fully integrated paper-free operating environment. So if you will, think of this eSource solution as something that predominantly for-profit research sites use to manage all of their site data at a clinical research site. So I think, from our perspective, it's really bridging the data from where it's captured at the site to where sponsors need it in their EDC systems. And so we, really are focused from a source first data capture, really eliminating that transcription from paper, offering also central eSource. And that's how we support sponsors and contract research organizations who want site-level data that's standardized and ready for EDC ingestion. And then we're also working extensively on EDC integrations, and we have active work ongoing with both Viva and with metadata.
Thank you. That's a great breadth of experience, and I especially like the site aspect to it. And as we go through our discussion today, that's a great perspective also to bring. Can you share what kind of eSource projects involving AI that you're currently working on or have worked on recently? And if you can, what type of AI technologies are being used? For instance, generative or agentic AI?
Sure. No, I'd love to. I'd say that right now, really our most mature AI initiative that we've got going on is really within our AI study design builder. So it's, I'd say it's probably largely generative AI. So it takes a set of inputs and produces a structured study design. So things like, for example, the visit schedule, the procedure structure, and really some of the data collection logic, cross form, cross visit, edits, et cetera. And historically, I think for us and as well as our customers, study builds have been one of the most kind of time intensive, time consuming activities for them to be doing. And so it really requires some deep protocol knowledge and platform expertise. And what we've been seeing is that through the use of our AI offerings and AI tools, that it really has been able to compress that dramatically. I think, though, when you ask about some of the projects that we're currently working on or looking out ahead, is that some of the longer term vision is really to try and look at things more agenically. So thinking about what that could mean for AI, not just to generate study design, but to also act across systems as well. So getting more to auto mapping of fields within our CRIO system to the EDC schema, and flagging any discrepancies before they become any type of data queries, and trying to pre-populate some of those data elements without human reentry. And that's really where we're headed with that. As I mentioned, even in describing kind of the area of eSource that we focus on, I think also our work with Viva and with metadata in terms of our integration, that is really also a continued example of where agentic AI could start, to really add a lot of value there too, and not just in generating content, but really, I think, for lack of a better word, kind of intelligently orchestrating that data flow across those two, the two different complex platforms in real time. So, for now, most of it is around our AI study design and how we can leverage tool sets to ingest, protocols, data standards that exist, and being able to go through and, through the use of AI, actually create the study designs in a much more streamlined, and in a lot of ways more compliant way too, because it is literally ensuring that every aspect of the study is accounted for as it does the initial builds that way.
It sounds like, really positive outcome, for the end user to have that connections and those data flows and workflows. Um, as AI becomes more integrated into your eSource workflow, have you or your team needed any specific AI related training or upskilling? And what's that experience been like?
Sure, no, I absolutely, and honestly, I think in a lot of cases, and I think with a lot of companies, it's really one of the most underestimated parts of an AI strategy. I think people get excited by different tools that are out there, but there's not necessarily time spent to think about what is needed to help assure or ensure that people are as ready as possible to be able to adopt and adapt to it. So I think from a technology adoption without the capability just creates more confusion, I think, or concern, right, over what's it mean to me and my role. So what we've tried to do is really take a structured, but as much as possible human-centered approach. So within our organization, we've provided enterprise Claude licenses to every employee. Um, and that really, the point there is to give everyone a capable, governed tool to help experiment from day one. We've also designated what we call AI champions within each department within our organization. And these are people that we invest extra time in. So, they might receive advanced prompt engineering or workflow design and some best practices, and then they can coach their colleagues and peers organically rather than just relying on top-down mandates. The other thing is we've really tried to train everyone on data regulatory hygiene. So making sure that people are very aware of the types of data that they should and shouldn't touch AI tools, and why. So in clinical research, especially that's really something that, in my opinion, is kind of a non-negotiable, that you want to make sure that you are, you know, trying to be as hygienic as possible with the things that you're feeding into the tools. The other thing, although seemingly simple, is that we run a dedicated internal Slack channel where the team can share AI wins. They can talk about experiments and failures in real time. and it's really made adoption feel like a team sport, if you will. And so, you know, at the end of the day, the honest truth is that, upskilling is still ongoing. The tools, as you well know, are evolving fast, but so are the use cases. And so we really see AI literacy as just a continuous investment, and not necessarily just a one-time training event.
That's great. It's a good perspective on upskilling folks, and having that champion is a great idea, just to have that go-to person, kind of peer-to-peer coaching as well. Um, so you mentioned Claude. I'm just wondering, are there other AI tools that you're currently using, and any governance or policy around how your organization uses them?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, in the prior question, we made a deliberate decision early on to get the AI tools into our team's hands proactively, really rather than waiting and reacting. So we knew AI was going to be transformative, and we wanted to make sure that our people could benefit from it right away. But I think just as importantly, we wanted to get ahead of what the industry calls shadow AI, and that's where basically individuals start using their own personal accounts with different terms around data protection and model training. And frankly, for us, that was a real risk, and we wanted to make sure, especially in clinical research where data sensitivity is absolutely critical, we didn't want that happening outside of our control. So that's where I was talking before about kind of having our own Claude licenses internally and managing it that way. So, like I said, we provided enterprise Claude licenses to every employee, and we gave our engineering team also access to Claude code for development work. And our enterprise, uh, teams ensure that no data is ever used for model training with minimal data retention policies. On the governance side, part of what you asked in your question is that we train all team members on data regulatory best practices, and specifically, what types of data can and can't be used in AI tools. We've also established, as I mentioned before, AI champions within each department, and they're people that we invest extra time in sharing advanced techniques and best practices, so that they can also, again, continue to press into um, staff from a governance perspective, and coaching day in and day out. We've also built really a culture of transparency around all this too. As I mentioned, we have that dedicated Slack channel where people can share. And then on building AI into our own kind of CRIO products, we're not trying to chase shiny new features just for the sake of it, but we're really focused on making users really more efficient, improving quality, removing some of those tedious, repetitive tasks that I talked about before, especially with some of the AI study build stuff that has historically slowed teams down. And then also making sure that we still have that human in the loop, at least for now. And for the foreseeable future, frankly, is kind of a non-negotiable. So we've been very deliberate about making sure that every AI powered task has the right level of review to really maintain that regulatory compliance going forward.
Thanks. I want to maybe just explore a little bit further something you said about being proactive to get tools in place. How long have you been using AI in your eSource work, and how has your approach evolved over time?
Sure. I think, within our organization, we've been obviously, as many others, on an AI journey, and I think I describe it in kind of two distinct phases. And I think for us, the first phase was really internal productivity, right? We wanted to get AI tools into the hands of our team internally, so that they could work smarter, whether it be writing and research and code review and customer communications, and this has really happened over the past couple of years as models became genuinely more capable enough to trust with real work. Things like Gemini early on, or other things as it helped perfect writing or giving suggestions around emails and things like that. And I think really the second phase is where we are now, and it's really about embedding AI directly into the product itself, and that's a fundamentally different challenge. And it's not just kind of use AI to work faster; it's build AI capabilities that make the platform itself more intelligent for the nearly 3,000 sites that use it every day to perform the work that I described with your very initial question to me about kind of what is our eSource platform. I think the big evolution in thinking has been around trust and risk tolerance. So early on, there was a lot of caution, and rightfully so, again, because we are in a regulated industry. But over time, we've gotten much better at defining kind of where AI can operate autonomously and where it needs human review, and now to build the right guardrails so that some of those efficiency gains don't come at the cost of data integrity. So that's where we are now, and of course we continue to look for ways that even simple things like, for example, using um, chat bots or other things like that can comb through all of our help materials and collateral and information to help our end users use the product more efficiently, more effectively. And we're also looking at ways that we can build in uh, other prompts and other things for the end users as they're navigating around the system.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a few areas that it sounds like you're touching a lot of different components of the eSource workflow. Um, at what stage of the eSource process do you typically integrate AI? Is it early in planning, during execution, in the data review analysis phase, or all of the
Sure.
above?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of all three. So, meaning planning, execution, and review and analysis. But obviously, it differs a little bit by stage. So, from early in the planning, that's where we've made the most deliberate investment, and it kind of goes back to what I've already said a number of times, right? The AI Study Design Builder targets really the study setup and configuration, which has been obviously a very labor intensive and prone to a lot of errors too, with study setup and ensuring that we get things right. Because obviously getting that right just pays dividends across the entire trial. I think from there, during execution, some AI assisted quality assurance or quality control is an active area of development for us. So think of it as kind of AI simulating the checks a skilled human reviewer would perform. So flagging any type of data entry anomalies, validating that what's been built meets a high quality bar, and really surfacing issues before they become potentially protocol deviations. And then I think from a data review and analysis standpoint, I think a lot of us are heading that way, and kind of where the EDC integration story becomes even more critical. So if data flows cleanly from our initial CRIO eSource capture into, say, for example, Viva or metadata without manual transcription, meaning it flows automatically through our direct Viva EDC API or through our metadata HRC integration, you've really kind of eliminated an entire class of data quality risk. And so AI can then work on cleaner data to surface insights faster. And, I think more so AI on the back end with our customers, our sponsor customers, that can then apply, truly move more toward a clinical data science approach to how they're looking and reviewing data than kind of staring and comparing or more traditional clinical data management activities. So I think, the honest answer is that further downstream you go, the more you're operating in sponsor territory rather than site. But that's where central eSource and this EDC integration work really becomes strategically important for us, because you're harnessing and leveraging the data directly from the source, applying AI based things in the very outset from study builder all the way through to being able to apply AI tools as a sponsor or a CRO, looking at data more holistically.
Thank you. I agree. I think that it's really is about kind of all three areas being really in play for AI.
Yeah.
You had mentioned also, that this is kind of the today state, and then some things that you're looking forward to doing in the future. Finally, just kind of to wrap it up, if you're looking ahead into the future, what changes do you foresee in scaling AI across eSource, whether it's technology, governance, or even workforce readiness?
Sure. I think three things that I'm watching closely are really, from a technology perspective. I think it's that shift from generative to agentic. It's going to be really part of the defining change. So right now, most AI in clinical research, I think I would kind of classify as more or less assistive. It really helps humans do things faster. But I think agentic AI will start doing multi-step work, more autonomously. So for eSource, that means things like, auto-reconciling site data against EDC schemas and flagging discrepancies and routing exceptions really to the right person, really all without essentially any manual intervention. And frankly, that's not really science fiction. It really is becoming more of a capability of what we're seeing now, as well as even expanding and improving going forward. I think from a governance perspective, I think the regulatory frameworks have to keep pace with the technology. I will say that I think the agency, albeit somewhat frenetic at this point, I think is certainly moving the needle ahead on doing things that we can do to help streamline. But I think everything that we've talked about here today helps drive forward some of the things that you hear being talked about within the agency, right? Trying to get to a single pivotal trial. But how do you do that? You do that by ensuring that data are of utmost quality, that patients are, then the data that's collected is such that you're streamlining the ways in which you're collecting, cleaning, and eventually submitting the data. So I think from a governance perspective, having AI built into that process will just help better position within the agencies and the guidance and how data are moving through the agency review process. And then I think from a workforce readiness perspective, which I think was the last part of what you asked, is that, the sites that we serve as CRIO really range from, larger centers, large multi-site research networks down to small independent practices. And obviously AI literacy and their understanding of that is not evenly distributed across those. And so I think that the platforms that will win are those that make AI accessible without requiring sites to become data scientists. That means, having smart defaults, intuitive UX, and really AI that works quality into the background rather than demanding new skills. So I think that will just really help drive, adoption and acceptance of these things and help drive that forward.
Thank you. I think that's a big part of what the SCDM eSource Implementation Consortium is really focusing on, is promoting that idea that we could accelerate the adoption of eSource if we had the right tools and the right training and the right governance. So I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I want to thank you for your time and sharing your AI and eSource journey with us.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you here today. Thank you.
Thanks again. And please join us on Spotify for additional podcast episodes on AI and eSource. And thanks for listening.